Hey, this is Bill Gladwell, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Hey Look at Me podcast. In this episode, I sit down with comedian Derek Richards. You can hear him on satellite radio and on the nationally syndicated Bob and Tom show. Derek and I talk about Bill Cosby, making the move from radio to comedy, handling hecklers, getting caught in the open mic circle, being a quarterback on stage, performance nightmares, leaving your problems at the door, and the club to visit when you're in Las Vegas. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, you can subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher, and when you do, leave a 5-star review. We would all appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter at Bill Gladwell, and you can jump on my website with any questions or comments at BillGladwellLive.com. So enjoy episode 11 of the Hey Look at Me podcast.
That's hysterical. All right, let's light this candle.
It's already lit. We're good.
Oh, it is?
We're on.
Cool.
Yeah, we've been recording for a while, so we have everything. Yeah. So we just finished, and so you may hear some glasses and candles moving around, but we're cleaning up. So, Derek, I know nothing about you other than what I've seen on YouTube and just knowing you from the last 3 days. So I know you're from Michigan?
From Detroit, originally. Actually started out on the west side of Michigan, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, of all places. Was in radio before I did comedy. Been doing comedy now 21 years. Did radio for 8 years before that. Got fired from my last full-time radio gig. And
what did you do to get fired from a radio gig?
It's pretty easy to get fired from any radio gig. They look for they look for reasons to.
Did you miss your post?
To get rid of you? Miss your post? Nicely done. Yeah. Nicely done. No, I'd worked at a rock station and just didn't get along with the program director, and so
that'll do it.
They're like, all right, this isn't gonna work. And they're like, you're fired. I'm like, okay.
I worked for a radio station for a while. I was on the air and also in sales. And this was a long time ago, but I get a call from the general manager in the middle of the night. I had to go pick him up because he rolled the station van because he was all cracked out and everything, and he couldn't even see straight. So I had to go pick him up, and we had the van towed. So
those are great old radio stories. I got pulled over with the station van one time before, too, following some girl back to her house that I met at a station function. And I was following her back to her place. We're going to hook up, and I got pulled over following her back to her apartment. And I literally had an outstanding warrant because I didn't pay a speeding ticket in the last town that I lived in. And so the station van got impounded, and I got arrested that night.
WMMS.
Hilarious. What's that?
WMMS.
I wish it was at WMMS. That would have been a great story. Phenomenal rock station in Cleveland.
My son, who's sitting back, he's 19 now. He's almost 20, but he was young. Do you remember the ambulance? Yeah. But the station had an ambulance. It was all painted black, and it had the station logo down the side. And I used to take that every night. I used to take that because it was a good vehicle to go out in because it was gutted out and back, had seats back there and everything, and the lights still worked and the siren still worked. So it was a good time.
That's hysterical. I love that. But those were some good stories back in years ago when radio was a lot of fun. It wasn't all commercialized and
automated now.
And it's voice tracked, and it just sucks. I mean, you've got a million stations that are all simulcasting things like Bob and Tom and John Boy and Billy and stuff like that. So I think the personalization of radio has really kind of gone away, and I'm glad I got out of it. I'm happy that I'm doing this. I bounced around for a number of years, living in Michigan and then down in Florida for a while, and now out in Las Vegas for the past 3 years.
Why comedy? Was it something that you knew that you wanted to do, or did you just kind of fall into it?
I'd always been a fan of it. Watching A&Es, even at the Improv and Caroline's and stuff like that, and so it was just one of those things that I had just been a fan of it, but I had never. It wasn't like I grew up listening to George Carlin albums or Bill Cosby and stuff like that. Should we even mention Bill Cosby anymore now?
Yeah, now Disney won't listen to our podcast. So.
No. Oh, darn. I can't believe. Did you see that picture that was being passed around on Instagram of Bill Cosby? And he has that shit-eating grin on his face, and somebody superimposed Sleeping Beauty in front of him. It is hilarious. You've got a Google image, Bill Cosby and Sleeping Beauty. I was dying. It was absolutely hysterical.
Bruce Jenner's cat. It's a dog. It's a beagle.
I have seen that one.
I did see Bruce Jenner's cat, which was a dog.
So what year are we? Oh, here's the podcast. I didn't tell you anything about the podcast other than the name. And when I grew up in Lima, Ohio, and I wanted to get into the entertainment business in Lima, I had no mentors. I didn't know what to do because I kind of winged it. I mean, I winged it until I got out and got down to Columbus, and I didn't have anybody to help me out. So I wanted to put together a podcast where people coming into the business or wanting to get into the business or people just interested could maybe get some tips or maybe just know that there's other people going through the same things that they went through at some point, and as you know, how to be persistent and the different traits that you need to get to where, for example, you're at. And so that's what the podcast is really about. But how did you were in radio and then you got into comedy? How did you say?
A buddy of mine ran a room in Kalamazoo. It was a weekend room, a Friday, Saturday gig. And if you don't know where Kalamazoo, Michigan is located, it's halfway between Detroit and Chicago. And right off I-94. And the cool thing about that was he ran this room and I said, hey, do you mind if I come in and host? I'm thinking about getting into this. Can I MC for you? And so he said, yeah, sure. He says, come on in. He goes, plan on doing about, 5 to 7 minutes. He goes, if they're liking you, he goes, do 10 minutes. If not, bail. No sweat, no worries. We've got, 2 other acts coming up after you. And the cool thing is that at that time, just geographically, Kalamazoo, between Detroit and Chicago, I got to see and watch some phenomenal comedians from both Detroit and Chicago, and then and a lot coming in from Cleveland and coming up from Indianapolis and stuff like that because it was so centrally located. And that was the best opportunity that I had. The guy's name, if he punches us up, Don Towns, who was the guy who ran that club. And it was a little tiny room, sat about 120 people. They did 1 show on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday, and they just always had some great acts coming through there. It was a lot of fun. It was a great education to sit back there and watch these guys, every single week, seeing different acts coming through. And even if I wasn't on the bill, I would come out there and watch the shows just to, study it and just kind of get a feel for the craft and see, how people handled different audiences, whether the audience was drunk and obnoxious or if it was, if they only had maybe, 15 or 20 people in the crowd.
What years are we looking at on that?
We're talking 90. I started Thanksgiving weekend, 1993.
And what happened at that point? Did you just get the bug?
I went up the first time, and that was right at the time when the whole Lorena Bobbitt thing had happened. And so that was just, that was every comedian's comedy goldmine. And so, I had just written a bunch of stuff about the whole Lorena Bobbitt thing at that time. And it was I went up there and, it didn't, it's not like I went up and the first time I went up, it went fantastic, but nobody threw shit at me.
That's always
so
good.
I'm like, you know what? I'm cool with this. Some people laughed and was up there for maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes, and, when you're starting out in the business and if it's not going well, 5, 6, 7 minutes might as well be 5, 6, 7 weeks.
Yeah.
When you're up on stage. Right. But it was but that's when I got into it. I'm like, this is kind of cool. And so I was doing that and also waiting tables at a Radisson in Kalamazoo and in a little cafe, and then doing, working room service and stuff like that too. So it's a lot of, it's like any job. It's like you're doing anything. It's like you pay your dues. Start off at the bottom and then try to supplement your income and, and do what you can to survive.
Have you ever had shit thrown at you when you were on stage?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, someone threw, and thank God it was one of the clubs it was a place where probably, truth be told, if you were going to get something thrown at you, that was the place where it was going to happen, because they served all their drinks in paper cups. And I said something to some guy about his girlfriend was drunk and she was being super obnoxious, and all of a sudden I see this cup just flinging at me and seeing beer foam just kind of spiraling, and the bouncer came over. The guy was huge, grabs him, throws him out. And
wow.
And the cup landed on stage, and there's a little puddle of beer there. And I just started cracking up because I was literally talking to the other comedian beforehand. I go, this reminds me of doing comedy in the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Behind the chicken wire.
Exactly, behind the chicken wire fence and the Jeff Healey band. Exactly. I'm like, if something's going to happen, this is the place it's going to happen in. So.
Just one time, though.
Just once where I physically had something thrown at me. Another guy actually came on stage in South Dakota. Was doing a gig there. It was in a hotel lounge, and the guy came up on stage because his girlfriend was super obnoxious, and I made a comment or whatever, and I said something very unflattering to his girlfriend, and they got thrown out. And then all of a sudden, when the guy got in the parking lot, he realized what I said to his girlfriend, and then he came back in, and he's like, "You called my girlfriend a blank," and I'm not going to repeat it in the presence of a lady, but she was. I'm not going to lie to you.
Did he come up on stage?
Yes, he did. He came up on stage, and it was funny because it was in December, and I'll never forget this. The room was about 2/3 full. It was an elementary school teacher Christmas party.
Oh, no kidding.
So there was literally like 60 elementary school teachers and their significant others and these 6 douchebags. And they were the ones that were screwing up everybody else. So this guy comes up on stage and he's like, you called my girlfriend a blank. And so he comes up on stage and there was cameras everywhere. So I just backed up against the wall, and kind of held my hands out a little bit. But then all like these 3 or 4 husbands jumped up on stage and grabbed this dude and pulled him off because the security guard was still outside dealing with the other people that he threw out. So, and the bartender was just, scared. He was just, he had no idea what was going on, and it was absolutely nuts. But that was a makes for a fun story.
Yeah, but both of those stories they were hecklers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, none of your content of your show.
No.
It was just it was their fault starting it in the first place.
Just, you know what? Add enough alcohol to a big enough asshole and shit's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. So how do you handle that? Because you have to have the crowd on your side, and in that case, I think you did. But for example, the guy that threw the cup at you.
Yeah.
How do you handle hecklers? Because, I don't get as many hecklers as what a stand-up gets.
Right.
But when you get hecklers, how do you know when it's time and how far to push them?
Well, you got to kind of... What I tell anybody, and if you watch somebody who can deal with it, and that was something that I wanted to learn also from, and I learned a lot from the working at that place in Kalamazoo, was seeing how the different acts handled the different situations. And the ones that were successful in dealing with the heckler is when I say you fired a couple shots over the bow. You didn't launch the torpedo and sink the ship immediately. So you kind of gave him a couple warning shots, and then you kind of throw it out towards the crowd. Like you say, you get the crowd on your side, and you kind of play to them where you're going, look, you guys all came here, you got babysitters, you spent the night, you got dinner, you come out here to see a show, and then once you really just reinforce that thought in everybody else's head, then it's not just you against him, it's 200 people against him.
That's right.
And then you get because you get the crowd and you go, hey, by applause, who wants to see this asshole, out in the parking lot? And then when the whole place erupts, then you've won.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but if you immediately go for the jugular out of the gate, then you look like the jackass.
Yeah.
So if somebody's drunk and they, say something or whatever, it's going to happen. I mean, you're at a comedy club and people are, knocking them back and they want to try to be a part of the show and make it about them. And it's just up to you to kind of control the environment as best you can.
Yeah. Do you know who Miss Pat is?
I know who she is. I've never seen her. I've never worked with her before.
Did you hear it wasn't a rumor, it was a fact, but she got in a fight with one of the other comedians that had opened for her. Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, and I don't remember who it was or the complete story, but she tells it, and it was also in the paper, so you can look it up online and read about it. But he was telling some off-color jokes, and it was she's African-American. The guy that opened up for her, I think, was African-American, but it was a white audience. And the person that opened up for her said some things that shouldn't have been said, at least that she didn't feel that should have been said, because it was the audience that she was playing to, and she didn't want him pissed off when she came up. And so when she came up, she apologized and then said, he should have said it, and said something about him, and he came back out and just got in her face, and she dove from the stage on top of him and just beat the crap out of him. So
nice.
Then she got back up and did her set. So
that's hysterical.
You can't see that on YouTube.
I
know. See, that's why I tell people you got to come out and see a live comedy show, because you're not going to see that on Live at Gotham or any Comedy Central Presents special. I mean, comedy on TV and on YouTube and that's fine. But come out to a show, because you don't know when that's going to happen.
No, and so those are some of the best moments. Maybe
those
not
are
that
hilarious.
moment, but those are some of the best moments. that you'll see at live events. You've never gotten in a fight with another comedian on stage, have you?
No. There was a guy. There was a comedy duo. I was in Fort Lauderdale, and they were up on stage, and they were doing they just did a little 7-8 minute spot, but they came up on stage and they had like some kind of shaving cream, just goofy little prop stuff, and so the stage was just covered with shaving cream and it was just trashed. And they walked off stage. They were done, and I walked up, and I'm standing there, in this, everything's, and there's just shit all over the stage. And I go, hey, you guys come back up here. It's like 200 some people in the crowd. I go, come back up. I go, clean this shit up.
Well, yeah.
And I'm I just leaned back against. I sat on the stool back against the wall, and they're like, well, what are you talking about? And I go, grab a towel and clean this shit up. I go, you don't come up here and trash the stage before the next guy comes up. If you're the headliner, do what you want. I go, but I'm not. No. And so they literally went back in the kitchen, got towels, came up, and cleaned it. And I just sat back there and drank my water and told the guy in the sound booth, and I go, got some Sinatra or something back there we can play? Some cleanup music? And so they played some Rat Pack music for about 2-3 minutes until they cleaned it all up, and these guys were pissed.
Yeah, but they had no right to be. I mean, I worry about getting the stuff off the stage, and it's only a whiteboard and some pieces of paper for me, and I wanted to get it off before you come up. But
well, and in that, I mean, that's not being destructive.
No, it's not.
But this was, there was literally
all over the stage.
Shit all over the stage, and they got pissed, and we got into some little, email exchange back and forth, and I had told the club, manager what had happened. And he was on my side. It was his club.
Yeah, he didn't want it messy.
And he's like, what are you guys doing trashing the stage? Don't go doing that.
Yeah.
So
you started up in Kalamazoo, right? Kalamazoo, right?
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
And in the open mics, I would imagine.
It was actually, funny thing was, it was an actual show. So there wasn't any kind of an open mic scene in Kalamazoo. So I literally went up, and the first time I went up on stage, I actually got paid to be the MC.
That's unique.
That never happens.
No.
And so I got a chance to work with professionals out of the gate, which I think makes all the difference in the world. I think I tell anybody who is starting out in this business, and it goes for anything. If you want to be a better golfer, you golf with people that are better than you. You play golf with Phil Mickelson, or you play golf with your buddy that loses 24 balls.
It depends if you're playing for money
on a putt-putt course. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, if you want to be better, hang out with and work with people that are stronger than you so that you can learn and you can get better. Because I think a lot of comedians will get caught up in that open mic circle, and they end up just going up and doing shows in front of maybe 7 or 8 people, and it's not a comedy club crowd.
Right.
It's your open mic friends and their friends. So maybe some of the jokes that you're doing could be, extremely graphic and disgusting, and they're going to laugh because they think it's funny because you're up on stage making an ass out of yourself. But when you actually go in front of a comedy club audience and you don't get that response.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a different animal.
Absolutely.
So I tell anybody, I go, go to the open mics and use them for what they are if you're just trying to hear what something sounds like coming out of your mouth, but don't use them as a barometer for what an actual audience is going to, give back to you in terms of joke approval or disapproval.
Was there anybody that was up and coming at the time that is still around that significant comedian that you were working with back at the time?
You mean that started out at the same time as me, or guys that I had just worked with for years that have accelerated? I had worked with Daniel Tosh had opened for me down in Florida.
Oh, that's right. You lived in Florida?
Yeah, I lived in Florida for a while.
From Michigan down to Florida.
Yeah,
that's a big move.
Yeah, that was a big move.
What took you down there?
Actually, I went down there twice. First time was in 95, 96. A buddy of mine got a job in Florida, and they were paying his move, and he goes, hey, you have anything going on up here? He goes, you want to go to Florida? And I go, yeah, it's warm. I hate snow. Let's do this. So I went down there the first time, and then actually came back to Michigan, and then I went back to Florida again in 2000. I was down there for 12 years when I was married. But yeah, Daniel Tosh had opened up for me and was always a super nice guy. I worked with Lewis Black when he was in the clubs, and that was fun. That was actually probably one of my favorite experiences, was working with him. And I mean, obviously I was opening for him, but I mean in terms of my favorite people that I've worked with that were not only very funny, but were just genuinely nice. Lewis Black and Damon Wayans was like that also. Super, super nice guy. Really, really cool. Worked with him before he got a show, after Living Color, but before he got a show, My Wife and Kids.
And that's the people that you do want to work with, because there's a lot of, maybe not a lot, but the handful of in the business that you don't even want to share the stage with.
Yeah.
Also, and I've run into them.
Oh yeah, believe me, there's plenty of douchebags in this business. There's like anything. I mean, there's a lot of really good people that I met, some really good friends, but there are a lot of douchebags. And I think in terms of acts that are celebrity acts that are funny, that I would pay to see, or I would recommend for somebody to go see. Somebody like Damon Wayans is a comedian first and foremost. And then any of his movie success that all came in TV, came after him being a stand-up. But when you see some of these acts that are what I call a frog in a bucket. Remember when you were a kid and somebody said, "Oh, look, there's a frog in this bucket," and you would come and look at the frog, and once you looked at the frog, you go, "Oh, it's a frog." Like, for example, Screech, Dustin Diamond.
Oh yeah, yep.
For Saved by the Bell. I mean, not even close to a comedian. And people come to see him because of the oddball freak show factor.
And he got arrested now, so maybe more people will come and see him.
Exactly,
because he made the news again.
That increased his stock. So I think that he's like the frog in the bucket, because somebody will come out and see him once, and they're going to go, "Okay, I saw him. I could do without ever seeing him again."
I did that with Tom Arnold.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to go see him, but I saw him once. His opener, his feature act was a whole lot better than he was.
Yeah.
And he had probably 10 minutes worth of really good material out of an hour and 15-minute set.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not impressive at all. And I had high hopes. I had high hopes to go see him, and I was a little disappointed walking away from there. That's
the worst, when you go into something really expecting something big, and it ends up being a huge letdown. But I mean, if you're coming out to see Screech, you're expecting something big, then you're just retarded. You can't be helped.
I don't think I'd ever go see him, but maybe to see what kind of audience comes to the show. But I know he was touring around. But Gary Coleman, before he passed away, he was doing stand-up too. I caught him actually on Evening at the Improv, because now they have it on Hulu, so you can go back and see all of those.
Oh my God!
And he came up and did a set, and I was watching it, and it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny, but at the time he was on Different Strokes, so they brought him up. And wasn't funny at all. But then you see people on Evening at the Improv like Billy Crystal, who was just starting out, or Adam Sandler, who was just starting out, and entirely different acts than what they do now.
Oh God!
And because Adam Sandler, if you go back and watch him, his act is he was playing the shy guy really on his earlier stuff. He would stutter around and play the shy guy, and he was soft spoken, but now he's completely different personality. And morphed. And so when you started out, and now, between then and now, have you changed quite a bit that you've noticed, or is your material that you started off with similar in your personality and your style on stage, similar to what you do now?
I think it's definitely different from when I had started. You kind of evolve as you go through the years, and I think it kind of, especially if you're doing something like this, different things that go on in your life will, can shift your tone and your personality on stage. Like, for example, like I went through, and I don't even do a joke about it now at all on stage, but I'm now 15 years in remission from cancer. Okay. And at the time when I was going through it, I had a stretch there of about 3 years where I got cancer, and my dad passed away, my grandpa passed away, and my grandma passed away. And I was really angry. And if you go back, if I go back and listen to certain tapes, or I watch stuff from back then, you can tell. And just over time, it kind of, you get over that. But when you have that kind of stuff going on in your life, no matter what it is, you it just kind of, for me, like I said, it really ramped up a lot more anger on stage, and I don't have that now, but I go back and I listen to that and I see where that had changed for a stretch of maybe that was like 2-3 years where it was like that, and then it kind of tapered back off. But it takes you about 10 years to really find your voice.
It really does.
I mean, until you really find out exactly the direction that you want to go in and how you want to relate to the crowd and what influences your comedy. Whether it's being married or divorced or whatever, and and if you're just going to be just this kind of an oddball, goofy character like a Tosh.
Yeah.
Stephen Wright is obviously very deadpan, one-liner, stuff like that too, but that all takes time to hone that.
It does. I mean, you guys saw my open. I did a half hour tonight of a 75-minute show, and that is not what it looked like. Even 3 years ago, that's not what it looked like. It's morphed over the past 3 years even. And I've been doing this for a long time, but I had a stage comedy hypnosis show to begin with. And I would do comedy clubs and fairs and festivals and corporate work all over the place, and I did that for a really long time. And the stage comedy hypnosis was a little bit different because it was more, I equate it more to improv. Because after I do the first 5-minute induction and introduction of myself, you don't know what's going to go on stage. I had a set list that I wanted to go through, things that I wanted people to do, but you never knew what the volunteers were going to do up on stage. Now I do. I mean, everything that I do on stage is scripted, and I never had a script before, and I didn't really know the importance of a script until about 5 years ago when I put this show together. And I know if I ask a question fairly well what kind of response I'm going to get. And I think I've heard almost every response from people, whether it be just a comment that they would yell out or a answer to my question. And I'm surprised every once in a while, and it makes the show even better. And I've watched you over the last 3 days, and people listening and people here tonight, I don't know if they realize that because you make it look so natural that you're telling stories up here like it's the first time you've ever told them, that it's actually a script for the most part that you go through.
Yeah.
So what is the importance for you starting out and then now? How does that change the importance of a script from the time that you started and where you're at right now?
I think it's, I say it coming up here is like it's like a quarterback going into a game. You sit down with your coordinator and here's the game plan. But like any quarterback, you get a different defense and you gotta change the play at the line of scrimmage. Certain things are thrown at you, throughout the course of the game, or in this case, the show, where you can kind of go off script and, go into the crowd and do different things. But yeah, very much as far as for me, I know the destination, I know where it's going to start, and I know where it's going to end, and I know the path that it takes to get there. But sometimes, the GPS of the show has you recalculate and kind of take some side roads as opposed to staying on the interstate. So
yeah, Maryland tonight.
Yeah, a lady in the back of the room who was an elderly lady who had these glasses with little goofy lights on them, which she had that, and we had these two gentlemen right here in the front row. These two older guys that I said reminded me of the two old guys in the Muppets.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they were hilarious. I mean, they were an absolute stitch. I mean, they were drinking and just laughing their ass off and having a good time. And so it's the not knowing what's going to happen with a crowd that makes it that much more exciting.
I had one night that kind of stands out to me, and I've had several nights that weren't the best nights. And but one night, because I really do use 23 to 25 people on stage during my longer show. And so I always have volunteers, and I shake their hand, ask them where they're from, what they do. And I called a woman up one night and to stand up here and for something. And I asked what she did. And she said, well, I'm a nurse. I said, do you have a specialty? She goes, little people. And I said, you mean like midgets? Because I thought she was talking about kids. Like she was a pediatric nurse. She goes, well, no, we call them little people. And so she was really talking about little people.
Midgets.
Yes, midgets. Yeah, and so that
midget,
was...
midget.
So that's how it started. That started with her, and there's nothing I can do after I get her up here. I can't back out of it at that point. So we went through with the routine. I call another lady up, and I needed this lady to write some things down. And she was clear in the back row, and it was dark. It's dark when you're up here on stage with the lights in your eyes. You can't see in the back. This is right after the woman that was the nurse for midgets, and so I called her.
They're called little people. You insensitive prick. Really? God, come on.
So she and I pointed at her.
Don't be retarded.
My son's half Mexican, so when you said something about the Mexicans, he got it during your bit. So he knows about the leaf blowers and stuff. So yeah.
It's good to have a son that works.
That's right.
It's good to have a son that at least half knows the value of yard work.
That's right. So
I shouldn't pick on him. He's pretty big. I'm gonna shut the hell up right now.
Yeah, he's the biggest Mexican in the building, and so yes. Well, the other one, he keeps insisting is a Mexican, but he's from Cuba. And he serves food. I mean, but there was a woman in the back row, and I call her up because I needed somebody to come up, and I can't see back there. And she walks up, and she doesn't. She has hands right here. They're like, her arms are 6 inches long. Her birth defect is what she had. And so I didn't know what to do, so
she's a great swimmer.
I handed her the pencil, so she's holding the pencil like right here.
Right.
And then I needed to write some stuff down on a whiteboard, so I held the whiteboard up so she could do it. So it didn't. She knew I was helping her, so it was fine. She was okay with it, but everybody in the audience was really uncomfortable.
Got really uncomfortable.
So that was the second, right after the nurse. And then the third thing that I did, at one point during my show, I had a wadded up piece of paper that I would throw out into the audience, and that's how I would choose some of my volunteers for certain things. So I take this thing and I throw it out. This is right after this fiasco with the arms and the little people.
Same show.
And I throw it out, and people dove over the chairs. They ran out of the room. They were screaming, and I didn't know what was going on. I had a group of 30 highly functioning autistic people in the room, and it was like I threw a grenade at them. And they were diving over things and running out of the room, all in the same show. Yeah, so that's a very long story to ask you, Derek. Have you ever?
I can't top that.
I mean,
really?
Have you had a night
alligator
like that?
Woman and 30 quasi retards? No.
Have you had a night like that?
I have. Let me tell you, the funniest thing was actually...
Not to interrupt you, but I don't think we ever said this, but Derek Richards is who we're talking with.
Yes.
We should have said that at the beginning. All right, go ahead.
No problem. Toledo, Ohio, comedy club there, and they had a group, the manager of the club pulls myself aside and the my opening act, and so the MC was not around. And it was whatever county the manager of the club says, fill in the blank county that Toledo is in, is the, we have 25 mentally challenged people. It was a mental rehabilitation center. And so they said, we've got 25 people here from that group. Now, they can be out in public and everything, they're fine. You know, kind of like your group of retards that was, you know, diving away from the paper wad grenade. I don't give a shit. Whatever. So they said they're in the crowd. They go, look, and there's only maybe about 50 people, 40 people. Lucas County. Thank you.
That was it. Yep.
Thank you, Google. Lucas County Mental Rehabilitation Center, 25, 30 people from there, and the manager said, look, if you hear noises or whatever, just don't acknowledge them or say anything, you know, derogatory towards the group. Now, the MC is not there. So, show starts. I said 40, 50 people in the room. So you got 25 quasi-tards and then 25 regular people. I don't care. I really don't care. My name's Alec, by the way. My name's Alec, the half-Mexican son of the host. And so the MC goes up and he tells a joke, and the crowd laughs, and there's about like a 4-second delay, and you hear this. And I'm in the back with the feature track, my opener, and we're watching this, and because I've got to see how the dynamic of the room is going to work. I always watch every show, I always laugh when comedians don't sit in the room and watch the show, because there's so many fun, organic things that happen during the course of an evening where you can really read the crowd, and especially like with what you do on stage beforehand, it's a perfect opportunity for me to do certain, callbacks and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for any comedian to always watch every single show from front to back so you can get a feel for what's going on. So he pauses because he didn't get the discussion. He wasn't there about this group. So he tells another joke. Crowd laughs. 3 or 4 second pause. So now I'm in the back and I'm starting to giggle, and I'm going, oh, this is going to be good. So, and he kind of looks at the crowd, right? And happens again. Joke, laughter, dies down. One guy, and all of a sudden the MC does exactly what the manager did not want to have happen. He goes, who the hell let the retard in the room? And I hit the deck in the back. I went back into the kitchen and took a knee. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. And the opening act was right on my heels, falling into this big shelf unit with all the dry goods, and we are laughing our asses off. And the manager is shitting a kitten, right? Because we just had this conversation. So I can't breathe. I'm laughing so hard. MC comes off, and she's getting ready to, tear him, a new asshole.
Yeah.
And I walked up, and I'm like, normally I won't stick my nose in if it's not my fight, but I walk in there and I go, he was not here. So he didn't know, because she was all set to just take off on him. I can't believe you. And I go, you didn't tell him. And she looked and she goes, you're right. My bad.
Was he the house MC?
No, he was just, because they rotated MCs all the time. Okay. And so he was just, but I mean, he was horrified.
Oh, I bet he was.
Because, he didn't know. And now he's got to go up, 2 more times.
Yeah.
After he made this comment. And of course, the director of the Lucas County Mental Rehabilitation Center is just sitting there just going, oh my God, this is terrible. I can't believe this man would actually call one of our people retarded. And I could not stop laughing. So that was about as close to that situation. Not as funny as yours with throwing stuff out and they scattered like you lobbed a big wad of Ebola at them or something. But that was a great story. It was funny from a comedic perspective watching that happen.
You said you had a stint there where you knew that you were angry during your time on the stage.
At the time, I don't think I knew. I think after going back and looking at it, and people had said to me after I had kind of toned it down a little bit, they say, they just made a comment. They go, you seem less angry. And it didn't even dawn on me. But then I went back and listened to recordings from before.
Yeah.
And I just picked up on it. And I'm like, wow, you're right. So.
When, we deal with shit every day because we're normal people when we're not up here. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not normal.
Your son's laughing.
Yeah, we're not normal maybe, but we're people.
Your son was laughing you right under the bus back there.
But we're people. So you have bad days, you have good days, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, before the stage. So how are you consistent? How do you not let that affect you when you're on stage?
You just, it's funny. I went to go see a show with a buddy of mine. We were working in Myrtle Beach recently. And I had always said, you can't phone it in. You can't don't just go up on stage and just put it on autopilot, because everybody else here in the crowd goes through the same stuff that you go through. You might have had an argument with your girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever. That is not germane to them, the audience. They paid to come here because they might have had a fight with their significant other, and they came here to see a show and to laugh and to be entertained and to have a good time. So it's your job to make sure that you have that gear to shift to, so you don't go ahead and carry that onto the stage. It's got to be left, in the at the back of the room.
Yeah. But
I saw a show with a buddy of mine. It was a show in Myrtle Beach called Pirate's Voyage, and it was it's like a Cirque show, similar to a Cirque show.
But with pirates, I take it.
But with pirates, they were flinging these up in the air, and they had to catch people and stuff like that. And I was joking with my buddy who's been in the business now, I think maybe 8 years, and I said, these people can't phone it in, because if somebody phones it in, somebody can die. And it was just a good perspective for him, where he's like, you know what? He goes, you're right. He goes, if somebody lets their argument with their girlfriend or boyfriend get in there, and they've got to catch somebody, and they're not thinking, this guy can, end up, losing his life or breaking his neck or something like that. So, obviously, what we do doesn't involve that, but it's just a mindset.
Yeah.
To kind of put yourself into that, perspective. It's like, you owe it to these people that came in here
and let it go
to pay to see a show, and then afterwards deal with what you got to do.
I had a show one night when I was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I had the cast of Moonshiners. That is a show on Discovery Channel. Have you guys seen that? Yeah. And I got a call from them prior to, and said they're going to be there. I said, have them show up about a half hour early. We'll get them in before the crowd. We'll sit them in the front row. We'll be fine. And so they came in, and they all had water bottles like this that were clear, but the wrapper wasn't on them. And it looked like water, but it wasn't. It was all moonshine. They were all sipping moonshine. And they said, hey, we got this stuff out in jars in the van, and we'll give you whatever you want, but you just have to tell us what you like. And they had peach, and they had apple, and they had all kinds of different stuff. And it wasn't the Smoky Mountain moonshine. This stuff was 160 proof stuff that they had. And I said, all right, well, and they said, well, taste it, and we'll have it for you by the time you get off stage. So I took a little swig of one of theirs, and it was the peach, and I liked it. And they started laughing. All of them started laughing. And they said, no. You have to do a shot to really get the taste of it to see if you like it. So I did a shot, but then there were 7 different flavors. So 30 minutes before going on the stage, I had 7 shots of moonshine. It was not good. So I got up on stage, and I don't remember most of the show, but my wife helps me with the show, and she says, I've never heard you tell the pirate joke in the show before, because I said, what's a pirate's favorite letter? And then somebody from the audience goes, R. And I said, no, most people think it's the R, but it's the C, is what I said. And I don't remember it, but she has it on tape. And so I had that night. It was I shouldn't have done it, but that's how the show went. I'm not really sure how the show went, but I knew there was somewhere. And I get a call like at 2 o'clock in the morning from one of the guys from Moonshiners. He goes, guess what happened to me? Because he had my cell phone number. And I said, I don't know. He goes, I hit a bear on the way home, is what he said. So I hit a bear going back. So it was a bad night. So have you ever done anything stupid before you went on stage that interfered with your show?
Wow. No. Usually a lot of the really dumb shit I do is afterwards, which is good. Which is good. It's like you put the suppressor on until afterwards, and then you turn it into a gunfight at the OK Corral. But I have I've gone up on stage when I was starting out. I'd gone up and I would get a few drinks in me, and you always seem to think that you're funnier when you're buzzed or when you're drunk, but you're not. You go back and you watch the video or you listen to the tape and you're like, what? I look like an idiot, really? And so I quickly learned that was just not the way to go, where even though I thought I felt comfortable and I thought I was funnier, and then I looked at it and I go, no, that's just not, it's not working. So then I just stopped altogether. Like anytime somebody says, hey, you want to get a drink before the show? I'm like, I don't. Like, I can't touch anything before.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I found that out too. So
after doing 7 shots of 160 proof moonshine.
Yeah.
And then the dope that gave it to you ran into a bear on the way home.
Yeah, he did. Nobody's ever told me that before. I mean, I take, every once in a while if I'm sick, because I have never missed a show because I've been sick. I've had shows where at the middle of it, I said, let's take a 15-minute intermission because I had the flu, and then come back up on stage. So I've done that, but over the last 26 years, never missed a show.
No, I did a show with, I did shows when I had chemotherapy that day.
Did you?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? You just get some, because you got bills to pay.
Yeah, because you got on stage,
I mean,
we're not making money.
There's no, there's no medical plan. There's no, we'll go ahead and take the day off and we'll go ahead and pay you. That just doesn't happen. So, I mean, you just drink enough green tea and some coffee and take a, caffeine pill or something like that, a no-dose or whatever, just to kind of get yourself jacked up for that 45 minutes to an hour. And then when you're done, just, walk off stage and just go,
Yeah.
and then relax then.
And you're in Vegas now. And
Yeah.
I asked you yesterday or the day before how you got to Vegas or why you moved to Vegas, and you just said because you wanted to be out there.
Yeah, I want to live out there, and there's a lot of clubs in Las Vegas. Obviously, and the clubs now. Years ago, it wasn't like this, but it just really had become this way within the past, I think, 6-7 years, where the clubs out there, they don't care. Any other town, USA, if there's multiple clubs in town, if you work one club, it's very territorial. They don't want you to work the other one, and it becomes a war back and forth. And in Las Vegas, as many clubs as there are, they just don't care now. Before they did, they were very territorial, but now they realize that every 4 days they get a whole new audience coming in. The clubs on the Strip. And
So you rotate through the clubs.
so you can, So when I'm there, I can work, the Riviera, which is actually being imploded. I had worked there 7-8 times the past 7-8 weeks the past 2 years, which is unheard of anywhere else in the country. Same thing with Brad Garrett's club at the MGM, Sin City Comedy Club at Planet Hollywood. Same situation. You can work there multiple times, and they like it because they've got somebody who's local. They don't have to worry about somebody flying in and having to put them up and stuff like that. So
and that's good, local and good.
Oh yeah, works out
because you have some locals out there that aren't that good.
There's a really
entertainers, any entertainment out there.
Absolutely, I think the Vegas comedy scene is, I think, probably one of the toughest. You see people that they go, I want to move to Vegas because I want to go up and get a bunch of stage time. There's all these comedy clubs, but you just can't get stage time in Las Vegas. It's, they run their shows really, really, really tight, and there's almost never anybody coming up and doing a little, hey, let me pop in and do a 5-minute audition or something like that. It doesn't happen because everything is so regimented, and they want you out of there and back in the casino.
Because you're costing them money.
You're costing them money.
Yep,
absolutely. So it's tough. I tell any comedian who's starting off, I go, do not move to Las Vegas. That's the worst place that you can go to. And the open mic scene out there is horrible.
Yeah, and I think I told you we were thinking about moving to Vegas, and Teller from Penn and Teller said, no, if you could move any place else and do your thing, don't come to Vegas, is what he said. And that's how we got really down here, because we were dissuaded by Teller. And for the same reason, because he said when he got there, they signed a contract and they got paid, and they moved into a theater. And now you have to four-wall it. Most of the shows out there are four-walling it.
Yeah, if you're an unknown act, then...
Oh, by the way, do you know what four-walling is? You rent the place, and then you do your own advertisement, and you
do all your own promotion and everything. So, and a four-wall situation, it will be no different than if you decided to do a show in, a VFW hall.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, we're going to charge you $200 to rent the place, but you're responsible for getting people in the door, ticketing, and all that stuff too. So marketing and promotion and stuff like that, and especially in a city like Las Vegas, because there's no momentum with advertising and marketing. You can't say, okay, we spent $10,000 this week, great. Well, you know what? All those people that saw that $10,000 of marketing this week are on a plane heading out. So the places that. If you're a relatively unknown entertainer, if you're a known commodity, if you're Celine Dion, if you're Rod Stewart, Shania Twain, Penn and Teller, Terry Fader, stuff like that, you can go in and they'll pay you to have your residency gig there.
Yeah.
But if you're Derek Richards, Bill Gladwell, if you're going to be going in there, they're say, yeah, you can come in and do this, but here's the parameters that we work with. We're just not going to pay you unless you find a presenter or a promoter that decides to get behind you and say, okay, you know what, cool, I'll pay you a salary, I'll promote the show because I believe in you. I think you can knock this out of the park, and once people see it, it's going to get some ground. But you look back at the entertainers like Danny Gans from who was in Vegas for many years. Rest his soul, passed away a few years back, but he busted his ass. He was out there doing shows for 20 people for a long time. Yeah, at the Lady Luck. Yeah, years and years ago. And he busted his ass. So literally, you see some of these guys and you're doing 13, 14-hour days. And the hour, I think you and I were talking about this, the hour is when you're on stage. And the other 13 hours is you promoting and getting the word out, getting the ticket agents, brokers, having street teams out there, passing out the cards and stuff like that. That's all. When they're doing that, that's all the responsibility of the performer who's doing it. So, or whoever the promoter is that's behind that show. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting. So whenever somebody says, "Hey, why don't you get a show in Las Vegas?" I want to jump over the table and start beating the
Not that easy.
It's like it is not that easy.
That's not easy.
I've been out there 3 years now, and I've seen more shows come in and lose their ass and be gone within like a month in some places. I mean, literally, Bobby Slayton came in and had done a show. He had four-walled it.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah,
At the
four other
Tropicana.
Hooters.
It was
He was at Hooters first.
It was Hooters and then the Tropicana, wasn't it? And Slayton, who's a known commodity,
Oh, yeah.
four-walled it, and he lost 6 digits.
Did he really?
Yeah. I mean, he lost a lot of money. So when you see somebody like that who has that kind of notoriety, and even they didn't get the traction.
Louis Anderson's lost his race.
Louis
Yeah,
Anderson.
because he was at the
He was at Excalibur, then he was at the
Palace Station.
Palace
Palace
Station.
Station.
That's right.
And then the Plaza.
Yeah, I mean, he just kept going lower and lower.
Kept going lower and lower.
Yeah, but he also he spent a lot of money at the.
Yes.
Yeah, he spent a lot of money at the
Louis
casino.
Anderson enjoys his time at the tables.
Yes.
he does.
Yes, he does. He is a big gambling fan.
I told him a story last night where Louis won $50,000 on the $25 slots at the MGM, and he was angry because he was down.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's about right because I've heard those stories from him too. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I ran into him because I still had a convention at Palace Station that I had to be at, and Louis was still in there. And I literally ran into him because he was walking around the corner, and I was too. And I got a chance to talk to him and meet him when I was out there, and several years ago. And but yeah, I
One of the
did know.
nicest guys.
Yeah,
I mean,
very very nice.
very very nice guy. Extremely funny. I mean, really, really one of the, I would say, arguably one of the more iconic comedians
Yeah, I mean,
alive today. I mean, he had a cartoon. He had,
Right.
we
he
were
was
talking
on
about
Family
this.
Feud.
Yep.
Yeah, he hosted
He
Family
literally
Feud.
had Family Feud slot machines with his picture on them the day that I was there when he won the 50. Because we're all hanging out. We're meeting Carrot Top after one of his shows. We're all going to go out.
Yeah.
And he won that money, and we're like, "Oh, congratulations!" And he's just angry. Dude, that's bad.
That's really
Yeah. Do you if you don't want to mention it, that's fine. But do you have if somebody's going to Vegas, do you have one of the comedy clubs that you recommend that it's a must see?
My favorite club in town is I really like Brad Garrett's club.
Yeah.
At the MGM. I mean, he really did it up right. It's seats probably about 300 people or so. He's there once a month, and when Brad himself is there, he MCs the show. He's not the headliner. So he goes up, and it's very old school Las Vegas, where he's like, hey, this is my show, and these are my friends. And so he goes up, and he'll do 40 minutes up front, and he just obviously kills. I mean, he's hysterical, does a lot of crowd work, and he's just an absolute riot. One of the nicest people in the business too. Very very generous, super funny guy, great guy. But he literally sets the table. He goes up and does 40 minutes and kills, and he's like, okay. You guys are very nice to me. Please show the same appreciation. I've got a couple good friends of mine here. Blah 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 blah. Please welcome Derek Richards. And so it's he sets it up for you as good as he possibly can. So he's not trying to ruin the show, but it's just he really adds a lot to it. And so
I haven't been in that room
it's a great
before.
time.
I've walked past it, but it's always like 12 o'clock at night, and it's closed by then. When I'm walking past it, but I want to go. I want to see that room. I've heard it's been nice. And Brad Garrett, I don't know if you guys who he is, right? From Everybody Loves Raymond. He's the character he plays on there is not. I mean, I like his real life, who he is, and it's different. It's like the guy from
Bob Saget.
Bob Saget, yes, he's very different. Very different.
Yes.
Yeah, there's an understatement.
Brad's
he was on Full House, Bob Saget, and so
America's Funniest Videos.
yes, and fans of those two were going to his stand-up.
And his stand-up is filthy.
Yes.
Filthy. I mean, really
He would
filthy.
walk half the room easily.
I mean, not the occasional, hey, fuck this, or, I mean, wrong. And if you go online and you look at Bob Saget's comedy, like I said, it's funny. It's not my cup of tea, but if that's what you're into, I mean, he's good at being extremely, extremely
Shocking
filthy.
and violent,
But
yeah.
literally, you want to go there just to sit in the back of the room just to see how many of these people think that he's going to be the nice, happy-go-lucky, Full House character or the goofy guy from America's Funniest Videos, and then literally, like you said, half of the room gets up and says, "We're on." It's awesome.
All right, Derek, I'm going to ask you one last thing, and it's more for people that are in the business, and this is off the stage. The thing that has gotten me to where I'm at now, I account to boldness, doing things that other people don't want to do or won't do in the business sense of it. So I will call people that nobody else will call and ask if I can come in and perform, or I will, pick up from Ohio and move down to Hilton Head Island for a club. Those are the things, and that's why my success. That's what I account to my success. What is it? If you could give one thing to anybody just getting into the business, what makes the most difference? Do you think?
That's very important. What you mentioned right there is create your own opportunities. Being in Las Vegas, I called around to some places. There's a lot of the Sun City communities out in Las Vegas, the 55 and up areas, and they have their own entertainment centers. And you see a lot of entertainers in Vegas that will go and do shows at these, different places. And, some of them, again, it's like any sales call. You're going to get rejection, but you're going to get rejection if you're trying to call clubs and get in there, anyway. So, say create your own opportunities. Like you said, go where other people are not, going to do things. If a club's not going to hire you, go to a VFW hall. And put on a show, and if you're starting out in the business, don't bring a bunch of your friends, bring some established people in there to do the show so the audience is getting their money's worth. And then, you work the show and then learn from these people. That's the biggest thing. And treat it like a business. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of guys just think it's a party 24/7. But it's not. The hour on stage is the fun part. The work is getting the work. The work is traveling to fill in the blank city, wherever you're going. Dealing with flight delays and, hotel screw-ups and stuff like that. So, but you've got to conduct yourself like a business and treat everything that you're doing like, it's just like marketing, a product. It's like, how do you present yourself?
Right.
You're putting together your demo. It's like, a company coming in and saying, hey, I've got this, like you watch Shark Tank, and these people come on and they have a little video or presentation that they put together for their product. Make it look make yourself look as good as you possibly can. And I think when club owners also see you, that you treat this like it's a business, and they understand that you respect what you do, and that you're not just some, drinking, partying, cocaine snorting douchebag.
Yeah.
Who's going to throw paper wads at retards and clear the room? Whatever makes you sleep at night. Seriously. But as long as they see that you're coming in and you conduct yourself professionally, and you just and don't fuck the waitstaff. That's the best piece of advice I can give anybody.
There's a lot.
Don't fuck the waitstaff.
Yeah. There's a lot of comics, though, that... Yeah.
They don't listen to that.
No.
And nobody listens to it.
No.
I tell any open micer, I go, don't fuck the waitstaff. Because you're going to... Because what?
The 80s are over.
Yeah. Because you just never... how many times in this business do you end up seeing, somebody who was the bartender who is now the booker, of the club? Or... this waitress who you ended up hooking up with, and now you never, she ended up being a hump and dump. You leave, and now she elevates through the ranks, and now she's booking the place. And you, douchebag comedian who never called her back or never, gave a rat's ass, you just screwed yourself out of work. Or... literally. Yeah, literally. Yeah. Exactly. Or, the waitress ended up being somebody that the manager of the club, had, has been looking at.
Yep.
Yeah. And now he knows that you went ahead and slept with her, and he's wanted to, and now he hates you just because of that.
Yeah, and he's afraid to have you back because you're going to do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's so many reasons that you can screw yourself out of work in this business. I say you just come in, do your job, be professional, tip the staff, be nice to everybody, treat the person who's, at the door or the waitress, as you would treat the manager of the club.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they could easily be the manager or the booker at some point.
That's right. So if people want to get a hold of you for any reason, to book you or whatever, how do they do that?
DerekRichards.com is my website, DerekRichards.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff too. Just type in comedian Derek Richards. And I don't take pictures of my food and stuff like that on Facebook. I have a lot of inappropriate shit that I put on there. Also on Twitter, stuff like that too. So it's just like fun little goofy jokes or pictures and stuff like that I'll take on the road and stuff like that. But yeah, DerekRichards.com. I'm also on YouTube with a bunch of video clips and stuff like that also.
That sounds good. Well, thanks for doing this.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for sticking around. And Derek, we got one more night. And so far, every night's been good. So thanks a lot.
Tomorrow night we ruin everything.
That's right.
We set this place on fire.
We'll do 7 shots beforehand, right?
Exactly. Bring in the moonshine. Peach, apple, cinnamon, cherry, you name it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
I'm going to call you tomorrow night just to say on the way home I hit a bear.